Hey guys, Bubba here with the Bubbanews, all in one word, all in one news. How are you guys doing tonight? I can't believe it's already Monday. This weekend is gone. There's been continuations of war in Israel and Iran, and now Trump is talking about a ceasefire. Is there going to be an Israel Iran ceasefire? Or is the Iran-Israel war going to continue? We'll be talking about that tonight because there's so much going on. It's hard to keep up. There's so much news flying by. It really is. I don't know about you guys, but man, it is just crazy town lately. But let's just start off with this morning. I love this. I threw this up, Revelation 22:16. Jesus is the bright and morning star. Let's read the whole verse. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright and morning star. Right there is the only time that we see the word churches in the rest of the book of Revelation that we don't see the 18 or 19 times found in Revelation 1, 2, and 3. This is the only other time you see the word Revelation in the book of Revelation, or church in the book of Revelation. Yeah, you can see the Revelation in the book of Revelation in Revelation 1, 1, but it all started this afternoon around 12:30 because there were increasing signs that an Iranian strike was imminent on the USA airbase there in Qatar. So Trump entered the Situation Room today at 1 p.m. Eastern in preparation for what was coming. Qatar's airspace had been closed and American and British citizens there were advised to shelter in place. So the UAE ended up closing its airspace, so did Bahrain, so did Iraq. But everyone was waiting for this confrontation. But remember, Trump believes that a response that was coming would be just strong enough to allow Trump to counter or absorb it militarily, without turning this into a much larger confrontation. I posed a question earlier, but then again, what if they don't hold back and cause some major destruction to the U.S. forces? And here's just a good example of the bases there. The Qatar base, the Al Udeid Air Base, that's CENTCOM headquarters, the largest in the region. You've got a couple camps there in Kuwait, you got a couple there in Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and Oman that were under the gun today. But you know what? Here's what happened. The United States moved the planes from the Al Udeid Air Base there in Qatar in advance. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen there, all those airplanes on the left there in the tarmac there on the left-hand side. And look at the right-hand side. It's empty. Because the United States moved its airplanes out of the way. They moved them last week towards the bases there in Saudi Arabia. You know, Trump warned that there's still many targets left in Iran. And he said that Iran should stop this war immediately. Otherwise, they're going to get hit again. Trump said in a phone interview over the weekend. And Iran received prior notice of the U.S. bombings the other night, along with private communications from the Trump administration that it doesn't seek a broader conflict. So Trump said that he would opt to absorb this largely symbolic Iranian strike there on this base in Qatar, knowing that Tehran needed a safe face. But under the current conditions, with the Islamic Republic perceived to be on the back foot in the face of setbacks in the region, President Trump's tolerance for an Iranian response is much lower, and he did not want something big to go off. Well, at 12:48, sirens were ringing out. I mean, it almost looked like Israel there because the United States was taking care of the inbound missiles there from Iran. But while that was going on, oil prices fell over 3% as Iran launched their missiles at the U.S. bases in Qatar. So the market was pricing out anything going on with Iran. Basically, all the signs were pointing to a short-lived war. And that's what the market traders were looking at. And the air defenses there in Qatar successfully accepted all the incoming Iranian missiles, so we thought. Then it said that Bahrain was under attack. Then there were reports of explosions reported at the U.S. Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq. Then there was reports that Iran launched missiles towards U.S. bases in Kuwait. So all these sirens were going off, and they called this Operation Fatah's Blessing. This is what Iran called it against the American Al Udeid Air Base there in Qatar. The UAE closed its airspace. Air raid sirens were going throughout the 3rd Tawhid base there in the Green Zone in Baghdad. You know, this was a campaign that we thought at the beginning against all U.S. bases in the Middle East. And as this was going on, you can see how the airplanes were turning around over the Persian Gulf as Iran was firing those missiles towards the Al Udeid Air Base there in Qatar. But you know what? It seems like they just crossed a red line tonight by hitting Qatar and hitting our air bases. But there were no Iranian ballistic missile impacts so far. So Trump was in the Situation Room going over what was everything going on. U.S. military jets scrambled from the bases in Saudi Arabia. And there were some direct hits reported, but that didn't happen. So that's a good thing. But I did want to throw this up because this was as of... these are all the current military bases in the region that Iran could have been targeting. So this was an updated map I wanted to throw up there in 4K of all those things. But the Iranian attack ended. And it was a short-lived thing. I mean, there were sirens at U.S. bases in Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. So there were no more new missile launches. But, you know, the airstrikes were still being reported there in Iraq. But, you know, Iran ended up claiming the responsibility for the missile strikes on the Al Udeid Air Base there in Qatar. And they said it was retaliation for the U.S. attack on the Iranian nuclear facilities. So this had to have been approved by Iran's Supreme National Council. And they framed this as defense of Iran's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The IRGC declared that the strike was conducted under the sacred code of Imam Hussein and warned that the U.S. and its allies, for any future aggression, this would lead to escalated responses from Iran. And Iran said that U.S. bases in the region are now vulnerable rather than strong. So this is part of Iran's eventual collapse that they want to see of the U.S. influence in the Middle East. And they're trying to still get this to eliminate the Zionist regime. But check this out. Even Israeli tourists in the UAE, they were left disappointed. There was no missile show on their itinerary because the Iranian attack is over.
פה מחכים לטילים האיראנים.
נו אבא, איפה הטילים?
עבדו עלינו, אין טילים. יאללה, בואו לראות את הפטריוטים, בואו.
Qatar was mad, though, because they said that this affected their sovereignty. But the Iranian National Security Council claimed that its attacks pose no threat or danger to our friendly and sisterly country, Qatar, and its people. Iran's Supreme Council said that the IRGC and the Iranian army pulverized the U.S. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar in response for this weekend strikes against the nuclear sites in Iran. So they launched 14 missiles, and this was the number of U.S. bombs that were used. And Iran claimed that the strike avoided the civilian areas, with the wording suggesting that this will be the only military action by Iran against the U.S. But the response still may come here on Israel. I mean, even Qatar... Here. This was some of it. Just another view. Because they had the Patriot missiles over there, and Qatar had to use the U.S. back stuff instead of letting the U.S. Army use their stuff there at the Al Udeid Air Base. But, you know, they came out with this, saying that they successfully intercepted missiles attacking the Al Udeid Air Base. So the ministry reiterated that the Qatari airspace and territory of Qatar are safe, and that the Qatari armed forces are always ready to deal with any threat. Meanwhile, they know better than to go up against Iran. But the word on the street earlier was that the Gulf states were furious with the Khomeini regime after it fired the ballistic missiles at Qatar. I mean, a part of me earlier today saw a situation where this does result in war between the U.S. and Iran. But then another part of me knows that this base in Qatar was evacuated last week. And the Iranians know that they're just attacking an empty facility. So it was not only a face-saving exercise. But this is what we were doing earlier, looking through Twitter and everything going on. But Iran also, they notified the United States via 2 diplomatic channels a few hours before the attack. And this was a symbolic retaliation in order to save face with the Iranian people, as they've done in the past with Operation True Promise 1 and True Promise 2. But, it remains to be seen how the Iranian proxy militias will respond. And it might not be over because Iraq closed its airspace earlier, and the airspace, the last I saw, was still closed. But Iraq and some of the Gulf states are still implementing precautions. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, he convened his security cabinet meeting in Israel tonight at 10 p.m. Israeli time, which was 3 p.m. Eastern, to review and coordinate the ongoing operations against Iran. I mean, it might not be over yet. That's just it. We don't know, because we know that Trump and Netanyahu are looking at Khomeini going, yeah, we got you on this deal. I mean, Egypt Air even suspended all its flights to the Gulf countries until everything stopped. And Qatar's USA Air Defense intercepted 9 or 10 of the missiles launched by Iran. Actually, it was 13 out of 14, with one landing in an open space. But this is what happened because the U.S. may not decide to respond to Iran's attack at all because it was so small and it didn't do any damage to the United States. So the United States is most likely going to let Israel handle the payback if there's any. But this attack by Iran was even smaller than the retaliation strike that Iran launched on the Ain al-Assad base in Iraq after Qasem Soleimani's assassination about 4 years ago. So Iran coordinated the attack with Qatar to minimize the casualties. Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S. and allow all sides an exit ramp, similar to their response in the 2020 assassination of Soleimani there. And Israel estimates that more than 60% of the Iranian launchers have so far been successfully destroyed. Iran planned to fire 80 missiles at Israel in the past 24 hours, but 60 of them were destroyed before they could even be launched. So the IRGC destroyed underground military infrastructure, a missile storage site, a UAV storage site belonging to the Iranian armed forces, missile launchers ready to launch towards Israel, and lots of IRGC stuff. So earlier tonight, what time was this? This was even at 2:30 this afternoon Eastern, but it had been about 9 hours since an Iranian missile fired Israel. So everything that Israel, you know what I mean? That was 9, 10, now 11, 12. Oh, gosh. That was, goodness, that was 18 hours ago now. But Iran's retaliation to having its nuclear program wiped out has been very minimal so far. They haven't launched anything yet, per se. But the Iranian master plan for Israel's annihilation is a 4-decade-long campaign built on 3 deadly pillars. The first one is nuclear weapons. The Iranian regime has accelerated uranium enrichment and weaponizing efforts, aiming to produce multiple atomic bombs within months. But their ballistic missiles are no joke either, because Tehran ramped up ballistic missile production to build a massive arsenal of over 10,000 ballistic missiles capable of striking Israel and the broader Middle East and Europe and beyond. And there's still talk about a ground invasion coming, especially Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria, and Hamas and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza are all armed, trained, and directed by the Iranian regime to invade Israel simultaneously in massive waves of men. Massive waves of army manpower eventually want to march on Israel. This is crazy because when they say that they have planned to destroy you and they build the means to do it, you better believe them and act. Because Israel needs to read Zechariah 12, verses 2 through 9. See how many times Judah and Jerusalem is mentioned with an unsuccessful siege for the ground invasion. And the airspace in the region was slowly reopening, and the UAE flights started moving again. Bahrain, Kuwait flights, they were all moving. So there were still closures up there towards Kuwait and Iraq, but it seemed like the latest round was quite de-escalating in nature. You know, Trump gambled that the U.S. would bomb Fordo, and the Iranians would be deterred by the U.S. military power to have an immediate retaliation, and Trump basically gambled right. So Reuters reported that a senior Iranian official said Iran has the necessary rationality to begin diplomacy after publishing the United States aggressor. And the Iranians at this point are probably looking to get out of this brawl just as much as we are, the U.S., and are trying not to get sucked into any more fighting than we already have been. But you know what? Earlier, only Hamas they did not condemn the Iranian attack on Qatar. Hamas didn't know whether to bite the Qatari hand that finances them or bite the Iranian hand that feeds them weapons. Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and the Palestinian Authority, and Jordan, condemned the Iranian attack on the American base in Qatar. I mean, this is just a world of clowns. And speaking about clowns, talk about a complete collapse in oil prices because they kept going down. The oil prices are now below levels seen before this war even began. They were down over 10% from their high of the day. Oil prices are painting the true picture. Today's Iranian attack was de-escalatory, but the markets are pricing in a calm going forward. And this calm might be short-lived. Or will it? This next one I'm going to share with you guys because Now the End Begins shared this. And this says from them, they posted members of Trump's new White House faith office spouting gibberish over America. This is not biblical Christianity. This is the new apostolic reformation known as NAR, and it's a deadly heresy. I agree 100% because this is Isaiah 29 verses 13 and 14 all day long. But I want you guys to listen to the end because Jesus did not tell us to bring heaven to earth. He didn't. Only Jesus will bring heaven to earth at the second coming and not 1 second beforehand. Here's what they said. We cancel every assignment of the enemy. We are taking the land. Nothing will stop this nation. You told us to bring heaven to earth. America does not get to take the eternal covenant promises that Yahweh has made with Israel. Period.
We just thank you right now, Lord, from the east, the west, the north, and the south. You will shake America with your power and your glory. We cancel every assignment of the enemy. This nation was birthed to be one nation under God, and we are standing on the soil of the White House, and we are declaring your word. Every place that our foot will trod, you will give it to us, and we are taking the land. We thank you, O Lord. You have brought us to the kingdom for a time such as this, and this is the time. And so we declare right now, from the capital of our nation, that America will come back to God. We will come back to God. Nothing will stop this nation. And we speak right now by the authority of heaven. You told us to bring heaven to earth. Heaven is being released through your people right now.
Is it just me, or does it just feel like they were just doing this because they knew the cameras were on them and this was just a media show? Here's what Isaiah 29, 13, and 14 said. Then the Lord said, because this people draw near with their words and honor me with their lip service, but they remove their hearts and they're far from me. Their reverence for me consists of tradition learned by rote or repetition. Therefore, behold, I will once again deal marvelously with this people. Wondrously marvelous, and the wisdom of their wise men will perish, and the discernement of their discerning men will be hidden or concealed. You know, the closer we're getting to the end, the more we're going to see insanity because it's this fake religion that's coming to, oh man, it's just crazy town. But speaking of crazy town, so is this. This was nuts. Is this a normal day in the United States? All of these aircraft are military, either from the U.S. Air Force or the U.S. Navy. There's even B-52H nuclear-capable strategic bombers flying overhead, along with several fighter jets, tankers, and an AEW&C aircraft. There was over 340 planes up that were military earlier today. Something's not right. And with all the reports coming out from Hal Turner about putting Stinger missiles up on the White House, this, that, the other, we can feel it all coming, and we can see like what they're planning in the next Event 201 style attack coming, probably July 3rd, 4th weekend. That's what everyone keeps talking about. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But the reason that Qatar was so upset earlier is because they had to use their own stockpile of U.S.-backed Patriot missiles. The Qatari Armed Forces operates 11 Patriot fire units that are PAC-3 MSE enabled, and they have 2 THAAD, T-H-A-A-D fire units. Per Qatar's Minister of Defense, Qatar used their own assets, intercepted the Iranian ballistic missiles rather than letting the U.S. Army air defense artillery units at Al Udeid Air Base try to take care of it. So the Tasman news agency reported that a key committee in the Iranian parliament agreed to suspend all ties with the UN nuclear watchdog group, the International Atomic Energy Agency, today. The IAEA. Here's what they said. At a meeting of the National Security Committee today, members voted in favor of the broad provisions of a plan that would require the Iranian government to suspend all cooperation with the UN International Atomic Energy Agency. So Iran's not going to work with the IAEA anymore. And I don't know what good old Director General there of the United Nations, Guterres, is going to say. I doubt he's going to condemn Iran of all things, but if they don't work with their watchdog, their nuclear watchdog, that's not good. I mean, even the Khamenei, he came out and said, we did not attack anyone, as he posts this picture. He says, we did not accept anyone's attack. We will not surrender to anyone's attack. This is the logic of the Iranian nation. He posted a picture of a destroyed military base and burning American flag for the Iranian people to see. Instead of causing real damage, he posted a picture on social media. But you know what? Israel wanted it was announced today from Khan News in Israel that Israel wants the Iran war to end by this weekend. And they have no plans for a regime change in Iran yet. But this probably means that something entirely different will be happening by this weekend. Because Khan News also reported that the upcoming Israeli strikes in Iran this week will be extremely powerful. And the objective is to convince Iran it's better to end the war now. But then Trump comes out with this. He said Iran's response to the U.S. strike on its nuclear facilities was weak and expected. So Trump has taken the off-ramp after Iran's performance hissy fit. Trump even said that 14 missiles were fired and 13 were intercepted and no Americans were harmed. He thanked Iran for the early warning. What? Trump thanked Iran for their early warning and said hopefully the situation is now de-escalated, urging both Iran and Israel to move towards peace. Wow. I'm surprised that Trump didn't say MIGA, M-I-G-A, in this press release, because he came out with that over the weekend. Instead of MAGA, he came out with M-I-G-A, make Iran great again. Then he comes out with this shortly right after 4 p.m., after the markets closed. Congratulations, world. It's time for peace. You know how many people have been texting me 1 Thessalonians 5:3 this afternoon out of nowhere? And it's not this time just yet. But everyone's getting excited, especially and that's the weirdest thing about 2025. We're seeing so much talk about war on one page of the paper, then on the second page of the paper, we're seeing all this talk about peace. War, peace, war, peace, war, peace. That's what it seems like it's going. Even this, Trump acted like Iran just joined the Abraham Accords or something, and that all of Iranian proxies are laying down their arms all of a sudden. That just didn't happen. But check this out. Oil prices did plunge to a new low, down 13% from their pre-market highs. When Globex opened at 6 p.m. Sunday night, Eastern time, crude oil, went up to $78.40. Then it dropped over $11 to $67.29 as Trump said it was time for peace. This is crazy because Trump's goal now is to end the war. And he's going to make it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to get it done now. Here's what he said. We want a peaceful deal and don't want any more war. Trump's post, in which he called the Iranian response very weak, suggested that Trump does not intend to retaliate and draw the U.S. further into the war. Congratulations, world. It's time for peace, he added in a follow-up post. Perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. Trump claimed that Iran has gotten it all out of their system and that there will hopefully be no further hate. Can you guys feel the love? I do. I feel so much love now. Here's what he did. He even posted this from the White House. Trump went from unconditional surrender the other day to now let's make peace. Israel's preparing for the most destructive and intense wave of bombing attacks in the coming days from Iran still. I mean, if the desired outcome is not achieved, the Israeli strikes are going to continue. Israel may need to finish up fairly quick, though, in Iran, because Trump's putting the pressure on them. Trump wants this battle to end. In reading between the lines, Trump's basically saying to Israel, finish them, but do it now. But what has been started may not be that easy to put a stop to. But meanwhile, right before 5 p.m., as Trump was calling for peace, the IDF issued new evacuation orders for part of Tehran's District 7 due to the incoming Israeli attacks. So Israel's going to start working really quickly, I believe, tonight on Iran. Look at the time now. It's supposed to go into effect at 7 a.m. Israel time, which is midnight tonight, Monday night, going into Tuesday Eastern time. So Israeli fighter jets took off for Iran. Trump reportedly ordered CENTCOM to stand down and to reestablish a defensive posture from their current offensive posture. But I'm hearing more and more people that are talking about the regime change. And they're talking about the man ready to lead the transition into democracy, Reza Pahlavi. I mean, his talk and his name is still there. And it still could indicate still a upcoming Jeremiah 49:39 scenario, where God moves out of the place of Elam, the kings and the princes. But it's not yet, in my humble opinion. It's not yet. You know, while Israel's putting on the evacuation notices on Iran, Iran puts out an evacuation notice to... Where was this? This was Ramat Gan area. It's just outside of Tel Aviv. It's not even Tel Aviv, but the difference is that in Israel, when the civilians are targeted by the terrorists, every home is required to have a safe room in Israel. Though about 30% of them still don't. But in Iran, that's not the norm. So Israel, what they do is they'll issue these evacuation warnings to those in, like, say, Gaza or in Lebanon against Hezbollah, or here in Iran against the Iranians, to protect the civilians before carrying out the strikes and to get to where they need to get. But this came out right around, 6 p.m. Eastern. This was nuts right here. You know what? Because Israel's not done. And this is going to be a temporary Band-Aid at best. Here's what happened. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Truth Social that Iran and Israel have agreed to a 12-hour ceasefire, effective approximately a couple hours from now at midnight Eastern time, after both nations complete their ongoing final missions. My question is, what final mission does Iran have? Asking for a friend. I mean, maybe the ceasefire will only go for 12 hours. From midnight Eastern time tonight until noon tomorrow Eastern time. Trump stated that the conflict, which he called the 12-day war, will be considered ended at that point at 12 noon tomorrow, Tuesday. No officials from either Iran or Israel confirmed the ceasefire as of now. So this still gives Israel up until noon tomorrow, Eastern time, to enact a false flag operation to keep this puppy afloat. But check this out. My friend over there, one of my buddies over there from Oklahoma, she pointed this out to me too, and buddy down there in Florida. But, you know, we see the war in the news, we see the peace in the news. Well, Netanyahu says he's going to figure out a way to make peace with Saudi Arabia without agreeing to a Palestinian state. That'll be interesting, because Riyadh has repeatedly said that it will not agree to any normalization ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel without the creation of a pathway for a two-state solution. So Israel is, quote-unquote, very close to achieving its two goals against Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu told Channel 14, beginning with removing the nuclear and ballistic missile threat, unquote. Netanyahu says he is constantly reviewing whether the conditions are in place to end the war with Iran. Here's what he said. "I think our strength is the key to everything," Bibi said, adding that he speaks with Arab leaders and that Israel's strength is what leaves the impression on them. You know, I'm still expecting some intense precision strikes from Israel and some possible missile launches from Iran before midnight tonight, Eastern time. Because that would be 7 a.m. Israel time, 7:30 Iran time. But if Israel gets hard, then there's no deal. Because Iran might be trying to launch heavy barrages before a ceasefire kicks in, aiming for a victory image to salvage its honor before this war ends with Israel. I mean, this still could be a very tense night in Israel. I mean, after 12 days of war, the war ends with President Trump saying, "Make Iran great again. God bless Israel and God bless Iran." At midnight, 12 a.m. Eastern, the ceasefire will officially begin. We'll see if it lasts a full 12 hours. Because truly, anything is possible in 2025. Earlier, oh goodness, this was about 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Iran says they had not received any ceasefire proposal. So the clown show continues, and CNN cited an Iranian official saying Tehran has not received any proposals for a ceasefire. Israeli and U.S. statements are a trick to justify attacks on Iranian interests. At this moment, the Israeli enemy is attacking Iran. So there were no official comments from Tehran or Jerusalem. And I said, wouldn't that be wild if Trump announced a ceasefire and then Israel and Iran just shrug their shoulders and say, what ceasefire? A subscriber sent this to me, and he tied in Psalm 90, verse 10. Because when Bibi just said, I think our strength is the key to everything, adding that he speaks with Arab leaders and that strength is what leaves an impression on them, the other Arab leaders' Israeli strength. Well, he sent me Psalm 90, verse 10, which says, the days of our years are 60 years and 10, or 70, and if by reason of strength they be 80 or 80 years, yet is their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. What is soon cut off? Their strength, labor, and sorrow. And a lot of people think this is discussing the human life of if you're good, you're strong, you live to 70 years, it may be 80. But a lot of Bible scholars over the years have looked at Psalm 90 as being a very prophetic chapter, because when you read through it, you see how it's talking about Israel. And you can see it around, you can even feel it transition where it's talking about we, the Israeli people, up until verse 10, and then it talks about we, Israel as a nation, from verse 10 onward in chapter 90. It's really neat. But Israel put in new evacuation alerts for District 6 in Iran. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that too. But, new info came out, suggested that Qatar had mediated the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. But neither have confirmed that a ceasefire even exists, so far at least. And there's very high chances that Iran has already enough enriched uranium to build a nuclear weapon that they've moved and they keep stored in an unknown location. So it could be just a very good psyop for all we know. It's very possible that there is not and will not be an actual ceasefire. But we'll see. However, Iran will be accused of violating it, though. That's how you get the average U.S. taxpayer on board for a full-scale war against Iran. I mean, Netanyahu, he did come out about 7:30 tonight Eastern and said, we have a ceasefire. But, Israel told the U.S. first we strike. Only after victory can the right agreement follow. This was the IDF's approach with Hezbollah and Lebanon, and now again with Iran. It appears to have worked for a second time. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. It's just another smokescreen. Iran might be going for the ceasefire, but apparently not the Iranian proxy group stationed in Iraq, because they have promised retaliation. Explosions and large fires broke out in the NATO wing of Iraq's Taji military base north of Baghdad, where U.S. military radar systems and aircraft are stationed. So this comes just a day after the Iraqi resistance vowed to retaliate against the U.S., and only hours after Trump and the B-2 bomber struck Iran's nuclear facilities. So here's what's happened. Iran has agreed to a ceasefire with a country it doesn't recognize, a country it doesn't talk to directly, the United States, and through mediation by a country, Qatar, that it just bombed. Trump, this war is completely over. I think this ceasefire will last forever. This is what Trump said. And this was at 8 p.m. tonight, right before I went to record this video Eastern time, because there was still no official statement from Israel yet. But you know what? I have a feeling Israel is not done, and they are going to keep sending these F-35 Adir aircraft over to Iran and getting rid of all kinds of stuff, because keep in mind, both Israel and the United States have a full list of targets still ready to go. So what do you guys think? Do you think there's going to be a ceasefire? And if so, will it hold? I don't know, but this Israel Iran ceasefire could be a go, or it could be a short-term Band-Aid, because we've still got a lot of prophecies coming up. And guys, thank you so much for sticking with me. I can't believe it's already been this long. It feels like 30 minutes, 40 minutes already, but this is just news from noon today. This is literally news for about 8 hours. This is how crazy this world is getting. But the ceasefire is coming. War is coming. A peace is coming. So much is coming. I mean, where do we even start? Where do we begin? One thing is for certain, a ceasefire may be coming short term, but the Lord Jesus Christ is returning for us so very soon. Guys, we need to start digging in more of these prophecies because they are getting ready to unpack. And a ceasefire or not, I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to be with the Lord Jesus Christ in glory forever. And that time is coming so soon. Guys, lift up your heads. Our redemption draws nigh. I'll see you here, there, in the air. Maranatha until tomorrow night.